Testing, 1, 2. Okay, I see I have sound. Hey, good morning. I'm early, guys. I'm just doing housekeeping here with Zoom because it has a habit of surprising us when we try to start sessions. But so far, it looks like everything's working okay. Can you guys see my screen? Anybody? Yes. Okay, thank you. There's some cool stuff happening right now, which is one of the reasons I started a few minutes early. If you happen to be here, we might see some fun stuff. Oil is pushing the very top of its recent price range, and gold is keeping to its habit of not wanting to be in the teens for whatever reason. When gold gets up into the teens, as in 19, 15, it tends to leave. It'll either go into the 20s or it'll go back into the, 08, 09, back down there. I have no idea why that is, but I've seen it for decades. If anybody has any idea why that is, I'd be really interested, or even a good theory. There's funky psychological stuff like that in a lot of instruments, but this one just doesn't make sense. I mean, I know a little Mandarin. I know Asian culture real well because it was my minor in school and I lived over there. And so I thought, okay, maybe this has something to do with the teens and Asian superstition, because gold's real big and superstition is really important in a lot of older cultures. And I got nowhere with that. So I still have no idea. Anyway, if anyone ever comes across a theory for why gold stays out of the teens, I would love to hear it. Because I can tell you that for a fact it does it. I mean, that's just a given. So anyway, while I'm waiting for everyone else to show up, just a real quick look at the range in oil. You can see we're busting out into the 62s, breaking yet another consolidation. This has been going on for a while. Seasonal, yeah, winter oil prices go up. This probably is more geopolitical, I'm guessing. That's the thing about oil, gosh, I remember in 2008, 2007 and 8, I started getting long oil. And this was back when it was like in the 30s and 40s. Anyway, long story short, with the recession that hit and all that, it got it to as high as 150. And there wasn't really fundamental reasons for that. It was just purely emotional. And so keep an eye out for stuff like this. If something starts to get active in the Middle East, you could see this really blast off. Remember, this is the area up here at 63 where it has historically found quite a bit of resistance. Remember when the refinery got hit, it shot up there and then it immediately got sold down. So I'm watching oil today with a lot of interest. But you don't want to try to fade these kind of things until clearly they're going the other way. So we'll talk about that. Gold, again, the teens, who knows what that's about, but I'm keeping an eye on it. Once we get ready for the open, I'm gonna just flip this back like this, which is, I posted both of these views on the Slack. If I'm focused on the instruments, I really don't need to see the domes for oil and gold. And again, the focus I'm trying to take for the last week of the workshop here, and I'll introduce this formally once we start at 6. I'm just babbling right now. I really want the focus for the next couple of days to be on, what you guys should be doing to get to the point where this is actually a business for you, or on the road to being one. Even if it's a small account, if you're performing like a business, it won't stay a small account for long, and you can go get more money with other people's money and all that. So that's the kind of general theme over everything. And again, if you were here yesterday, you'll remember this. If you weren't here yesterday, let me just stick this here for a second. I referred a couple of times to this, and I really want to stay drilled in on the time of day and the good setups for the time of day. And clearly right now, we're heading into Open 5 stuff. So we want to be focused on that. But again, HMOMO at any time, and particularly with what's going on over here in oil, there's potentially some real aggressive activity there. You can see it's pushing up even more. So so I'm watching that, but my focus here is going to be on the open and talking about you guys trading small accounts and making them into big accounts. One other thing I want to just show you about that oil move. Let's see, where did it go? Oh, I guess I just wanted to mention that this is over on my right screen. So, you know, while I'm watching oil and gold, I do have the charts for them over there. Okay. Good morning. Good. Pavel, I'm glad to see you are not having Zoom issues anymore. I do not want you to move my notifications. Let's see. All right, Cortana is interfering with something I wanted to show you, so give me 1 second to test this. Let's just put a trade on here. And that should pop it up, and it's not. Okay, we do not want it suppressing those. Oh. Give me 1 second, guys. And then I will start in earnest. I kind of hate things like Cortana, even though I'm a Microsoft guy. So we had a little short going here that it's just in the test account, but I wanted to tell you a couple things about that, which I'm going to wait to do here. I just want to see why it should be popping these guys up and it's not. So I just need to reset. This happened last time, and let's see, go to notification settings. I'm trying to turn off the, 1 second, guys. I really hate Cortana. It's a real crappy, there we go. Let's see, don't want you, Cortana. I think that will fix it. Okay, let's try again. Well, I just started to tell you how Zoom was cooperating again, and now it's not. All right. Well, I'll just explain because I can't see quickly how to shut this off. But I get pop-ups on my screen like this when I initiate a trade like that, and that's Journalytics. For some reason, because Zoom's running it, it's suppressing them, and I can't quickly see how to shut that off. So I'll just pop that open to illustrate that, but the point is it doesn't suppress those when Zoom's not running. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start. Sorry, I've been talking about some other stuff. If you just rolled in, you didn't miss anything. I was just kind of playing around with some things. And I was just congratulating Zoom for not screwing up my webinar, and then they started screwing it up again because of notifications. All right, this is kind of part 2 of what I started doing yesterday. If you were there yesterday, some of this is going to be slightly repetitive because I want to reinforce it. If you were not, then you're in good shape, but I encourage you to go back and watch yesterday because there's a lot of material there that I'm not going to go into. Primarily, there's a couple of things we're going to do. I want to just bring up the Zoom thing like I usually do and just kind of make an agenda from that. Today's session is part 2, seeing chart patterns on the dome, which is really what I want to talk about, but I want to kind of work into it the idea of using ATMs because automatic trade management, I was not doing that earlier because in my larger accounts, I don't. But if you're new, you need to do that. Otherwise, you will make catastrophic errors. And then I want to talk about springs and upthrusts some more, which are just a real simple chart pattern. And again, I mentioned this for the people that were early, but my overall absolute mission this week is to focus you guys on making a profession out of trading. And so there's a couple of things I'm doing that are a little different um, from what we have been doing. First of all, I put this up here a second ago. I'll do it again. I have whittled down the setups that I think you should focus on if you're new to the ones that appear here and to the times of day. Obviously, you need to adjust this to your time zone. But right now, the only thing we're really thinking about is the open 5. And so we have about 25 minutes before the open. I'm going to go over some of the other stuff of this this session before we get there, but I want to be back in time for that. So keep in mind, I'm simplifying for you. You really should only be focused on open 5s, particularly the open 5A, first hour high and low, and the setups that occur around those, which are often springs and upthrusts, high momentum, HV reversals, etc. And we've seen a lot of examples of that. I posted a bunch of examples, but I just want you to understand that's going to be kind of my focus for the rest of this week for the workshop, because I think that's important. So given that, a couple of things are going on. I rearranged my domes a little bit with the idea that, again, most of the focus is going to be here on indexes and primarily the NQ and the ES. I want to be able to take momentum trades or really good extremes edges if I see them over here on gold and oil, particularly with oil up here, at a recent high. Remember the range view I just showed you? That's why I have these range views. I mentioned this yesterday also. I added just a native previous day high and low indicator from Ninja, because that's useful for finding ledges and edges. So it's called the prior day open high low. These are the settings. I'm not going to go over them. I'm only using the high and the low. The rest I'm not concerned about. That is unique to the ledge and edge setups, and you can see why. Like, this is the previous day low. It's also a really significant edge and ledge. So if we got down there, I would really be paying attention. Likewise, we broke out of that, and that's why I'm really watching oil right now. It's in a breakout mode at a very recent high that it's had trouble getting through. We have not been through 63 area at all. You can go back a year. So that's worth watching for whatever reason, whatever's causing it. Okay, so the dome simplified to really focus you on really one thing. If you're going to try to grow a small account, oil can be very hard to play unless you're extraordinarily disciplined and really good at reading the order flow. So I will come back to that topic. If you get good at oil, it's a great place to run a combine, for example, but you can really get burned because it can move so fast against you. So again, I'm really going to stay focused on indexes because it's just a good place for younger traders to mature, the NQ and the ES in particular. Okay, so a couple of other things about my domes, and I'm going to, again, go through all the chart setups really fast, hopefully before the open. But the domes, I changed one little thing here. Lee had pointed out something about the momentum tails. I had the colors correct, but I had them in the wrong columns. In fixing that, I realized there was a better way to set that up, and I have it here now. I have the same current trades painting, but I've put the momentum tails, I got that hard yesterday too, the momentum tails as well as the current trades. So again, these are the totals, these are the currents, and I'll refresh them just so you can see here. Why isn't that swiping those down? So you can see I'm wiping out those there and there, and I'm letting it build the footprint for the current. The reason I really like this with momentum tails is I can see it like banging into high volume nodes, like it's on one right now, and I can see who's winning. This is the selling side, this is the buying side. Right now, I'd say it's pretty balanced, but that's a cool advantage to setting up the day trader domes this way. Obviously, you can't do this in the plugin, so we couldn't do this before. So that's something that I've changed. It's the same on all of them. Other than that, the ATMs, right. So I added an ATM, just a simple one. I just call it CAT-S. That's for catastrophic stop, but it's a little more than that. And I'm in test mode here, so I'm just going to throw a couple of trades on that are meaningless to show you how that would work. Let's say, here oil is a good example. Let's say in oil, I thought this was the short of the century, so I'm going to sell it at the market. Okay, it's going to put these on kind of away from the trade. That's the setup for this strategy. And then I can move in. I can say, okay, for a short, that stops too far away, and I'll just bring it down there. And I want to make my target 1 tick, so I can do that. So that's how I would recommend you guys use the ATMs. And the way to set that up in Day Trader, we'll just leave that one running. It's really easy. You just go to the strategy manager, and I just named that strategy, and I just put in some ticks there, 12, target of 18. So that's how, it's really far away from the trade. Even on NQ, that's pretty far away. And I make it an OCO. So, if one side hits, it'll cancel the other side. So let's go ahead and let this stop us out. And boom, it's gone. So that's a good way to manage one lots for you younger traders that don't have a lot of money to lose. It will keep you from making big mistakes. It may stop you out of trades that you want to be in, and that's okay. With those parameters that I just showed you, let's see what that looks like on the NASDAQ. Oh, just for fun, we'll buy here. So you can see it's pretty far away from the trade, but if there was a lot of sweeps going on, I could get hit. And that's kind of why I call it a cat S. It's not an account wipeout. Again, if this was my account, I'd have this guy way down here, maybe there, because it's a different risk management mentality, and I'm going to talk about that a lot. So, if you're doing the 1 tick drill, this is really handy because it will keep your orders from getting filled on both sides, for example. So we're long, and again, it's going against us. I'm kind of trying to show that. So, if I wanted to choose a 2 tick stop and a 1 tick target, there it is. And so, oh, look at that, we got it. So the 1 tick drill worked. Now, what's happening if I wasn't running Zoom is Journalytics is popping these up so I can immediately journal them. And it's just opening a little window for me that's allowing me to comment and, on the setup and whatnot. And again, I got to figure out how to get Zoom to not block that. But understand that's going on. And if you have Journalytics running, you'll see it. And I'll make some recordings of that. If you're going to be in the crew, the small group, that's something I'm going to focus on is some recordings. Okay, so one other thing I want to show you. So over on my left screen, I've got a couple of different tabs running. I've got my process, I've got a news feed, I've got another news feed, I've got the Twitter, and Journalytics is running there, and it's showing me the upcoming news and the upcoming economic announcements. And when I do a trade, it's popping up into journal mode over here, so I can immediately journal it if I want to. So that's going on over here, and that's on my left-hand monitor, so it's not like right in my face, but it's easy for me to turn my attention to it quickly. So let's see, let's see the ATMs. Look at my notes here real quick. The DOMs, the play, we'll come back to that. Okay, and then the one other thing I showed you on the point of views, kind of the default way I'm running this is like this. So remember, on my right-hand monitor, which I can see, it's literally just to the right of these 2 charts. I've got oil over there, and I've got gold over there. So even though the domes are covered, I'm running 30-second charts on those. Here, let me show you what's going on. So for both gold and oil, these are in the corner of my eye. So I can see if the momentum suddenly changes or if it goes back up there. I don't need the dome for that right now. And since we are going into the index open, regular trading hours open, I really don't want to pay that much attention to gold and oil anyway. Remember, look, I said this yesterday, and I'm going to repeat it today because it's really important. If you are looking for a way to transition to just being consistently profitable, or if you are looking for a way, no, Emilio, I'll come back to that. If you are looking for a way to build your account, or if you're looking for a way, to make the jump to trading for a living, I strongly encourage you to focus only on, the indexes at the open 5. Other stuff, like gold and oil and other kinds of trades will develop, and your playbook will grow, and your skill will grow. But you can make a living just trading the open 5, springs, upthrusts, first hour high and low. You can do that just in the indexes, particularly in NQ. Even though I know it looks hard, it's actually the easier one to do it in because it moves so much. We're going to cover all that today. I'm talking fast. I'm trying to beat the open. Emilio asked me, Jeff, prior day high and low considers RTH only. No, but thank you for playing. That is exactly wrong, and I'll tell you why. See, it's showing overnights because that's an overnight high there. I want to know just the extremes. Remember, everything on my charts, Emilio and everybody else, everything on my charts must correlate to a specific play, a setup in my playbook. If it doesn't go on the chart. So what's the purpose of this? This is specifically looking again at those ledge edge ranges. So like this is a really important point right here. It's the low of the overnight and that regular session. It's a consolidation right before it. It was an opening range low. So that's an area right now I would really be interested in. A pullback to there might be a really good long. Again, on the other side of it, as I mentioned earlier, this is a breakout of a really significant range in a pretty significant uptrend. So you can't discount that. So yes, you definitely want to know what happened overnight. It's significant. Again, the conventional wisdom you hear all the time, oh, overnight ranges don't matter and blah, blah, blah. I would go with what Trader 71 says. I agree with him completely. Morad, that overnight ranges, particularly in the indexes, have a very, very consistent habit of being challenged. So for that reason, I have it 24 hours. Yes, that was a great question, by the way. That's the way that you really focus your playbook. Okay, the settle down warning for NQ pops up, which is always timely. That's how you really drill down to this. Here, whoops. Okay. Right now, we're looking at certain setups and we're looking for the information that supports those. So remember, it's not which way, you're not going from the chart to the setup, you're going the other way around. So remember this, you need to choose the setup beforehand, okay? And then go get evidence that that's happening and look for ace king quality of that setup. So this is a really good example of how that works. If you look at this oil conversation we're having, is I see a setup developing in oil that's, you know, this high that could be fadeable. It could break out and keep going. There could be all kinds of momentum up here. So, so I really want to see the evidence around that situation and nothing else, because I'm really not concerned with anything else going on in oil right now but that. And now I'm gonna, as the day goes on, I'm gonna see the oil opening and I'm gonna see the oil. Most important thing today will be the initial balance for oil, the opening 60 minutes. It will tell us if the heavy traders truly are supporting that price, if they really believe it's good, or if they come in and sell it. And so we're going to see some really good examples of how the momentum tails. Obviously, there's a ledge, right, or an edge right here to this bump, this high volume node. And if it falls through there, you know, surely 62 is easy, you know, the next bump down. So watching the momentum tails as it tries to kind of attack that spot is really cool. And that's why having, you know, the selling on this side and the total, you know, the current totaling up, you know, of that can really give you an idea of the action as it's playing out. So, so, you know, that's why, again, I put these the way I did. Thank you, Lee, for pointing out that it wasn't the colors that were wrong, but they were in the wrong place. And that turned out to be significant. And again, you know, this is a good example of you're constantly trying to improve your tools and your process. Sometimes the tiniest little things can be really significant. And gold is still, you know, working the teens, so it'll be fun to see what it does. So I don't really need the charts now. I've kind of got the context for oil. You know, we're watching this level up here. We can even go ahead and, you know, that's a pretty significant one. So let's put some, you know, big X's up there. I'm going to want to see, you know, what happens. You know, look for trapped sellers or trapped buyers up there, you know, if it blows through there. Trapped buyers are a good possibility, but probably not here. This is some tactical information. They're probably much more likely up here somewhere, you know, after it blows through that, if it does do that. So, you know, catching a short up there with a market order might be fun, or, you know, putting a limit order way up there, you know, you could like do that. So those are some ways you can kind of play the current price action. And so we want to make sure that our domes and all of our tools support that. And so you can see, look at this, the selling is much heavier than the buying at the moment, but it's kind of cool sometimes to do that and let those reset. I've got a delta here. If I want to reset everything, that also can be interesting to let a new delta start. And basically I'm building a footprint chart right here. And I'm also seeing the momentum of that footprint as it constructs itself. I really like the tools that Pete has built into DayTrader here. You can tell Pete is a trader, but he's also a coder, and so you can kind of see his trading experience getting constructed into his trading tools from a coder's point of view, like this momentum concept. Lee and I have some really cool ideas to screw around with that we're going to be sharing with you guys probably sometime in February. But both he and I have kind of been thinking about different ways to attack this with little bots. You could build a little bot that just trades this stuff. There's enough information here. So look for upcoming announcements on that. All right, so let's see. Oh, one other thing I wanted to repeat from yesterday. Let me put these guys back up. Okay, so I went back to using 4 different views really quickly. The footprint, we'll talk a lot more about that. I've kept the range. I've added the overnight highs and lows, or the previous day highs and lows rather. Kept the minute view pretty much the way it was. And I put the second back because I want you to kind of watch this at the open, the second view in particular, 30 seconds on the indexes. It can be a really useful tool to get I know some of you have struggled with putting all the crazy movement on the dome of the NQ into context. And the beauty of having this right here, so you can kind of look at it with the same eyeball, is even though it's moving so much, you can kind of see that the range it's moving in is kind of predictable. And you can see those ebb and flow volume swings that I like to play, particularly if you're looking for springs and upthrusts, because that's where you'll see them. And you don't have to play them on the 30-second. You can play them on the 3-minute if you want instead, if you want to play a little slower, maybe after the first hour. But certainly going into the open 5, we want to be looking at fairly fast time frames. And the suggestion I would do here is to put the NASDAQ at 30 seconds. I would put the ES on 3 to 5 minutes, so you can kind of get a more macro view, and you can see both of those views kind of at once as the open unfolds. So so this is kind of Jeff's experienced trader lesson for those of you that haven't been doing this your whole lives, and just kind of how to get your head ready to watch the open 5. I strongly suggest doing it on one screen. Having the other monitors, you turn your head, you'll miss stuff. And so that's why, I've gone to this for this kind of, what should the new trader who's trying to just be successful consistently in a couple of instruments or one instrument, what should his setup look like? It should just be this main screen. Everything else you really don't need right now. If I was doing a trade, for example, I could have my journalytics on the same screen and just minimized. So, if I were to put on a trade, maybe it'll pop up now for us the way it's supposed to. Now Zoom is suppressing it again. Anyway, what it normally does is it does this. It says you opened a short and what do you want to do? So I click on that and I can immediately journal it. And it normally pops, again, we're getting an interference here from Zoom, but it would normally open right on the trade. So I would see basically this window here. And, I could put in what kind of a trade it is, or in this case, I just check that. That's an old hashtag I made called testing, and then I just save it. And that's that. So that's kind of how Generalytics works when you're not running Zoom. And it's really cool. It's a quick, neat way to be able to journal. So anyway, we've kind of got a little trade going here. So let's just go with it. It's in the test account. So I'm not really concerned, but it's a short. So let's see if we can get a 2-tick scalp. I'm kind of seeing that maybe that's the way the order flow is going. Let's leave this footprint up and boom, we hit it. Okay, so I really like those momentum tails. The only reason I said let's try to get short there and set it to 2 ticks was this little bulge that it was challenging, and seeing the meters, which kind of tells me you weren't watching for the last 5 minutes, Jeff, but here's what's happened in the last 5 minutes. Does everybody understand that that's what this is? Remember, I showed this a couple of sessions ago. What I'm doing is I'm running a reconstructed tape with blocks of 10 or more, the only prints I'm seeing. But for the power meters, it's showing all the trades for 5 minutes in the left-hand side and for 30 seconds on the right-hand side. So even though I haven't been staring at this, I can get a sense of what's been going on. You can see there's definitely a little bit of a downward lean right now. And so, you know, that short made total sense to try to grab a 2-tick drill or whatever. So, and there was also a little sweep in there, you know, and that's another thing that I've got up on the, on this guy, and I haven't explained this yet, so let me before the open. So we're looking at the open 5 coming up. We want to only trade with the order flow. It's prime time. You know, you can make a living trading 1 lots just doing this. We might do a couple of live trades here. We might just stay in the test mode depending on what's happening. Testing has cost me about $800 in our little account. I'm going to replenish it and restart that, but that's where it's at right now. That's okay. I had a couple of things that were just errors on my part, and that's all right. So anyway, back here. So right now we're only concerned with the open 5. Is there a trend day or a flip brewing? We're going to ask that question soon, but not yet. We want to make sure we don't try to fade that momentum. It's just too dangerous. We want, if we're not getting information at the open 5 that's really informative, then we want to wait and see what the first hour looks like. That's always a good idea. If you don't see the setup you want, just wait. Gather information. Remember that. Collect information. You know, if we were looking at the process, that's right there on it, right? You know, not sure? Sit on your hands and collect more info. If there's gaps, or even if there isn't, the first hour high and low is more valuable than the open 5 range to just give you an idea what the rest of the day is going to look like. Okay, take a deep breath. That's always a good thing to think about. Watch out for chop. Watch out for correlation. Right now, we are not really totally correlated. Our TY is leading significantly. That's something to keep in mind. That's usually bullish when that happens. So you can see here's RTY down here. It broke out of a range. It's testing the edge. Gosh, NQ's just slammed right in the middle, so that's value. You know, there's the POC. Same story over here in YM and ES. So it might be worth keeping an eye on RTY today. That could give you a hint which way the market's going to go. If RTY is leading and the market doesn't go with it, then you could fade RTY. Okay, so watch out for sweeps. They can take you out of trades. Volatility and volume, the gaps and the internals. The internals will not matter until we get into the day a little bit. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of what's going on. We have 4 more minutes. Let's just clear these other little testies out there. Test trades. We're good to go. Okay, anybody have any questions or comments before we actually have the open, and we'll talk through it. And we'll talk through springs and upthrusts some more and some of the other topics. Let's see, what do I want to do with this? Let me put this back over here so I can watch the news. And what I'm talking about is this day overview. This is the tab I'm on, so I can see upcoming news and I can see anything that hits the tape. Again, it's not right in my face, but I have it set to do a little pop-up like that. So if Zoom weren't running, a little pop-up would come up over here and, you know, just call my attention to it. You know, I used to be much more, I've said this before, I used to have like paid news feeds, and it's my opinion that by the time you see it, everyone already knows about it. So, you know, I'm much more concerned with how it impacts the price. You know, maybe later in the day, I'll go back and say, what was that? Why did that happen? Okay, somebody asked me a question. Let's answer that one. I had correlations, but I answered it. Yes, good. Okay, yeah, correlation is a really important thing to understand, and to understand, you know, how to play it. Right now I'm saying, you know, RTY and NQ tend to lead, and right now RTY is leading, so that is significant. And so, you know, watch it. And again, we can watch it right over here. RTY is right here, and you can see, you know, the spot you want to watch for RTY. I don't have the, you know, the place I can put X's like I did back there on oil, because I want to save space. But, you know, if it just breaks out over here, that's significant. If it starts falling back to the other end, then, you know, I would expect the indexes to probably sell down to. You know, NQ and RTY tend to lead, you know, for obvious reasons. They're smaller companies, they're the NASDAQ, you know, they're the FANGs. And, you know, ES and YM tend to be the more stable, big company stuff. Not always, but, you know, conventional wisdom. I mentioned that earlier. If you were not here, Jerry, I talked a lot about the all-time high range in oil. And basically, I'm looking for one of two things. I'm not going to try to do any range trades there. They're just too dangerous. I marked the spot, and look at that. It actually blew through that spot. I had marked the high before. It took it out again, so now we have another high to mark. This is significant because it's at an area that it tends to, you know, revert from. The 63 area is what I'm talking about. But so far, it's not showing any signs of weakness. You know, down here is where it's kind of had quote unquote support, you know, so that's worth marking. And, you know, we've got a range to watch. But when oil gets fast, you know, it can really rock and roll. So be careful, you know, trading oil, unless you're good at it and you only trade oil, I don't recommend for newbies. Oil has a personality all of its own, and you really have to get good at trading oil. You know, it can be doing something really predictable 1 second and then literally move 2%, you know, in another 10 seconds. And, you know, if you get deer in your headlights, if you freeze, you don't want to trade oil. Also, the tick value of oil, you know, at 10 bucks a tick, you know, it moves so much more than ES at 12 bucks a tick. Again, you know, it's an opportunity, but it's a difficult place to trade. I mean, look how fast it's moving now, you know, off that high. But, you know, buying that would be really, I mean, selling that would be really dangerous. Okay, so here we go. That was the open. Everything's refreshing. And we can kind of just watch the action for a minute or two. I'm going to go away from oil. And again, I want to really focus on the indexes. For most of you, that's a better thing to do. So, okay, look at this. We've got some definite selling energy. I'm not necessarily going to trade this. You know, like I said, I'm in the test account. We might just put some stuff on for fun, like sell that. Okay, so there's how the ATMs can work, and you can immediately lock in and get, now we've got an HMOMO and we can just run it down. So this is how you manage a one lot, guys. I mean, literally, boom. Okay, so we just made a really nice, I don't know how many ticks that was, but that was a profitable little trade, right? Let's see here. So there's where I would journal it. And we just made 60 bucks on that one tick. Notice how it shows me that, which is kind of cool. On that one lot, rather. So obviously, there's a lot of energy to the downside, but there's buyers here too. So this is what I was talking about, guys. See how you can really see from the momentum tails how it's pushing into the levels. Let's let that just run for a couple of minutes and watch it. Really focus on this. Also focus on, you know, what it's doing over here. You can see the delta is pretty negative, and you can kind of see, you know, levels it's sold off from. So the second view, you can kind of see if maybe it's going to swing back up. So this is kind of a very cool open to watch with these tools this way. I like to go really fast on the second charts because they can be really visual if you're trying to just scalp like that. Watch that. And then watch those momentum tails over here. I'm not going to reset that. I want you to see how it can kind of draw a picture. And right now, this is pretty balanced. It's moving up, but there's traders on both sides. And, you know, see how it kind of swept through certain levels here, and it, you know, those were all on the buy side. We're definitely pushing the buy side now here. We got back past the open. Okay, look for either a long or a short right here. I think it's probably a short. That's my guess. Okay, let's see if we can get our stop in. Boom. All right. So there's another little quick scalp. That one was probably closer to 20 bucks, 25 bucks. Okay, so you get the idea. You know, if you just use these two simple things, the open 5 and momentum, you know, HMOMO, which you can really see here. You know, I don't know. Tell me, guys, I'm going to stop for a second and ask. To me, this seems just really easy to read. I mean, it's really clear what traders are doing. Can you say, are you guys seeing that? Is that starting to, it may be a potential upthrust, but I'm not trading upthrusts and springs at the open 5, Pavel. I certainly could, but I'm thinking too hard. Just look at the momentum. Nothing else matters, okay? Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just your attention over there shouldn't really be on that right now. It should just be on the momentum. It's pure enough here that you don't really, if you're staring at a chart, your attention's in the wrong place. Watch the dome. Now, but what you're doing is exactly right for a little later on in the morning. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, cool. So, and God, this is a really great open considering, having the tools set up right now. All right, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna just take off the momentum side here and reset that a couple times, but I'm gonna leave the current trade so we can see it built a high volume node right here around the POC. So that's a real interesting spot to watch short now, because you can see its energy is away from there. So this is that kind of from the middle out. This is definitely a short, and a retest here is a better short. I wouldn't chase this, but that clearly is the energy it has, and you can see there's a lot of selling going into it. But, could it pop up and could they trap some shorts down here? Absolutely. In fact, I expect to see at least an attempt at that. Um, Notice how what happened with the RTY, guys. Remember I said if it turns around and challenges the other end of the range, then you can look for the market to sell off, and that's exactly what it did. So correlation is a really important thing, and that's why I have it there where I did. Boy, you could really be cleaning up with one lots here. I'm trying to teach and not do it, but you get the idea. I mean, this could be $1,000 day trading one lot scalps easily. Do you guys all see that? Is anybody not seeing that? If you be honest, because if you're not, I really want to hear where it's where you're not seeing it. What's confusing? I mean, this is just, let's reset everything out. This is just a really high momentum trade that's a perfect short. The question is just, where are you going to get back in if you're not like me? There's a lot of spots to watch, but the momentum is so strong, you literally could just have joined it. You just don't have a lot of risk doing that, right? So let's just see if, just for fun, I'm going to see if I can find a spot to join it. Just watching the momentum tails. Okay, I just did it. So, well, we got 2 more ticks there, but again, always protect your risk in a momentum trade. And another way to play that would to put some sell orders up here and see if it comes back to you. And it probably will. Remember, I said they should try to trap sellers down here. I don't want that one. Maybe this one. But yeah, still energy is still on the sell side. So this is a really good day for stuff like this, though, as an example day, because you can do, if I wouldn't do it with a little tiny account, but with this, you could even, go ahead and get short and then try to add to it. So, move that stop way up and, then see if you can add to it. And see, we're profitable again. I mean, that's how easy it is to trade days like this, Pavel. Just get the trade on. I mean, so what was that? Another 40 bucks there, another 25. Oh, look at these 25, 25, 10. Again, this is all demo stuff, but it's executing against the real tape. So, this is a really good sim. This is the one built into Day Trader. So, anyway, I'm going to cancel all those because I want to talk about something else. But, just for fun, again, so let's see. Here's those trades, guys. I mean, you could easily do that with $1,000 account, but certainly with your $3,000 or $4,000 account, you could be doing that. And it's relatively low risk because of the way the ATMs are set up, and because you're taking trades that are already winning, they're already working. That's the whole idea behind HMOMO and the Open 5. You're not going against the action. Boy, this could continue here. Anyway, I am not going to try to trade it live, although I'm really tempted to because it's a great day for that. But let's go to questions. Yeah, that's a really good point, Pavel. The buyers just have no energy here. They just cannot, they cannot make any progress. Look at what's going on. Just looking at the second view here, and NQ's minute view is also handy. I mean, that's why 15 seconds is nice. You can see it blew through the Open 5 low and never even looked back. So certainly that's a spot to want to consider short. So you could go up there and say, you know, what is that, 66-ish? Yeah, like, you know, maybe here you could start looking for shorts, you know, like in there. And again, these are really good strategies to play given the tools you guys have and what I've taught you, because it all works together. You know, you're using all the setups and what little charts you have to use, or you could use none. Again, remember the kind of theme of this session, seeing chart patterns on the dome. So yes, what you saw, you know, was an upthrust over there, but it's a whole lot easier in this kind of momentum to just see them here. You know, if you're resetting, it's going to literally build you a footprint to upthrust from. So, I mean, again, you could get short here and you could, you know, throw another one up. And again, I'm already profitable. I mean, I'm just literally randomly hitting shorts and they're working. You see what I mean about that? Don't think too much. Don't think too much. Try to develop that skill that I'm showing you here where I can literally say, all right, I'll add to it, but boy, I'll go ahead and take one right here because it's too obvious that the next direction is down. Does that make sense, you guys? Is everyone seeing what I'm seeing here? And it's just, you know, you could make $1,000 trading one lots today, you know, and I'm tempted to let you guys go so you can go trade and we'll come back and talk later. This is a perfect day. Okay, questions. Yeah, I may end this and make another. Does anybody have any burning questions? Okay, you know what? I think I've covered the topic and I'm gonna just not talk. I'm gonna leave my browser open and leave it recording. And I might trade a little bit in our account. I hadn't planned on doing that today, but I don't know. I'd love to see how this settles down into the first hour. You know what? That's what we'll do. I'm gonna end this session and then if the end of the first hour looks real interesting, I'll do another live session. Okay, guys? So that's what we're gonna do. If you have any questions about this, post them. I think this is a really good day for you guys to go out and just do your thing. And we'll compare notes later. All right? Is that okay with everybody? Everybody agree with that? Any quick questions before we go? Watch for a good reshort entry here. Right now, it could become a high volume reversal and a long. Check your bias, okay? And if you can do it, you know, really focus in on the indexes and, you know, 15 seconds and the volumetric, the footprint up here on ES. And I've got this on 3 minutes, but, you know, with today's volatility, you might even want to take it up to 5. So you can really see if you're going to get a high volume reversal, that might be it right there. So you want to watch that spot, you know. Boy, 5 minutes is too much there. Let's go into that spot with 3 again. So we can drill down to what's happening. Okay, it's still coming down, but they could be trapping some sellers down here. So watch out for that. And with that, I will let you guys go. And if there's something interesting in an hour, I will post a live session link in the Slack. Okay, I hope we accomplished what we wanted to today. I think we did. It feels like we did. So go get them. All right, we'll talk to you later.